There is a kind of loss that is worse than losing everything. It is losing everything and then losing yourself on top of it. The man in this story had lost a kingdom. His name, his title, his army, his court, all of it, gone. Taken by war and by time, and by the particular cruelty of circumstances that do not negotiate. And he sat now by the side of a road outside Rajgir, a cracked clay bowl in his hands, dust on his feet, watching people walk past him as though he were not there. And the worst part, the part that was eating him more completely than hunger ever could, was that he had started to believe they were right. He had started to believe that the man who sat by the road with the cracked bowl was all he was, that the kingdom and the silk and the title were not just things he had lost. They were things that had been him, and without them, he was no one. This is the story of the Buddha who stopped in front of this man when the entire rest of the world walked past, and what he said that changed everything. His name had been Vikram, not a small name, not a forgettable name, a name that had once been preceded by a title and followed by a province, a name that servants had said with their eyes down, that merchants had invoked to give weight to a contract, that children in 3 districts had heard their parents speak with a particular careful tone that meant powerful, important, not to be crossed. Vikram had ruled a territory in the northeastern part of the subcontinent, not a vast empire, but a real kingdom. Soldiers, courts, trade routes, decisions that shaped thousands of lives. He had not been a perfect ruler, no ruler is, but he had been a capable one. He had understood the complexity of governance, the management of competing interests, the patience required to make things work across different communities and different needs. And then the larger kingdom came. They always do eventually. The armies arrived one season with a force that made Vikram's defenses look like what they were, the defenses of a small kingdom against a very large one. His generals were practical men. They told him the truth plainly. There was no battle that could be won. There was only how much was lost in the losing. Vikram surrendered. The terms were not savage. He was allowed to live. His family was allowed to leave. He was stripped of title and territory and given, in the particular language of these arrangements, his freedom, as though freedom were something given rather than something taken. He wandered for years. Some people who had known him offered help. He stayed here, moved on, stayed somewhere else. Pride is a particular problem for fallen kings. It prevents them from accepting too much from people who once bowed to them. And so eventually he stopped moving and sat by the road outside Rajgir with a cracked clay bowl, watching people not see him. The thing about becoming invisible is that after a while, you start to believe in your own invisibility. Not at first. At first, when someone walks past without seeing you, there is anger. There is the internal voice that says, "Do you know who I am? Do you have any idea what I have commanded, what I have decided, what weight my name once carried?" That voice is painful, but it is at least a voice. It is at least the voice of someone who believes he is real. What came later was quieter. After months by the road, after enough people had walked past with their eyes directed slightly above his head, the particular way people look at someone they have decided not to see, Vikram began to do something he could not stop himself from doing. He began to look at himself through their eyes. And through their eyes, he saw a beggar, a man with dusty feet and a cracked bowl and no title and no name that meant anything to anyone. And the voice that had once said, "Do you know who I am?" grew quieter and quieter, until some mornings it did not come at all. And on those mornings, what sat by the road outside Rajgir was not a fallen king. It was simply a man who had forgotten that he was anything at all. The Buddha came through Rajgir in the way he always traveled, simply on foot with a small group of monks. He was not looking for Vikram specifically. He was not looking for anyone specifically. He moved through the world with an attention that was even and open, like light, touching everything equally, pulled toward nothing in particular. And then he stopped. His monks continued walking for a few steps before realizing he had fallen behind. They turned and saw him standing completely still, looking at a man sitting by the road with a clay bowl. The man was not remarkable in appearance, not visibly suffering in a way that distinguished him from the others who sat at the roadsides of all the roads in all the regions they had traveled. But the Buddha had stopped. He walked to the man, sat down beside him in the dust. Vikram looked up, startled. People did not sit beside him. They did not even pause beside him. The Buddha said nothing at first. He simply sat. This was its own kind of strangeness, not the seated silence of someone waiting for something, the seated silence of someone who was exactly where he intended to be and had nowhere else to be. After a while, Vikram spoke. "You are a teacher," he said. "I have heard of you. You are respected. Why do you sit in the dust beside a beggar?" The Buddha looked at him. "I do not see a beggar," he said. Vikram laughed, a short, hollow sound. "Then you are blind," he said. "Look at me. I have nothing. I am nothing." "Tell me what you had," the Buddha said, not with sympathy exactly, with genuine curiosity. And something about that curiosity, something about being asked as though the answer actually mattered, cracked something in Vikram that he had been holding shut for a very long time. He told him. Not the proud version, not the version he had told himself in the early months, the version with himself as the noble ruler brought low by impossible circumstances. The real version. He talked for a long time. He talked about what it had felt like to rule, the weight and the meaning of it. He talked about the morning the generals came with their honest report. He talked about signing the surrender document with a hand that did not shake because he was too exhausted to let it shake. He talked about the years of wandering. He talked about the specific day, he could name the exact day, when he looked down at himself through a stranger's eyes and understood that he had stopped believing he existed. When he finished, the evening light had shifted. The monks had sat down at a respectful distance. The road was quieter. The Buddha was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "When you were a king, when you wore silk and your name made people stand straighter, were you more real than you are right now?" Vikram frowned. "What? Was your breath more valuable? Did your hunger hurt less? Did your grief feel less deeply? At your most essential, at the level beneath the title and the territory and the name, were you a fundamentally different being than the one sitting here?" Vikram was silent. He wanted to say yes, part of him very much wanted to say yes, because saying yes meant the life he had lost was a larger life, a more real life. Saying yes meant the current life was genuinely diminished and not simply different. But he was an intelligent man who had spent years with a great deal of time to think, and the honest answer, when he looked at it directly, was no. The breath was the same. The hunger was the same. The grief was precisely as sharp. He had not been more real then. He had simply been more visible. The king and the beggar, the Buddha said quietly, are wearing different clothes. That is all. That is all? Vikram said. A kingdom is just clothes? I do not say that what was taken from you was small, the Buddha said. Real things were taken, real pain followed. I do not dismiss any of that. He looked at Vikram steadily. I say only this. You have made a particular kind of error. You have looked at the clothes that were taken and concluded that you were taken along with them. Silence. The title was clothes, the Buddha said. The territory was clothes. The name that made people stand straighter, clothes. Useful clothes, perhaps, important clothes, but clothes. And underneath? Vikram asked. His voice was very quiet now. Underneath is the one who is always there, the Buddha said. The one who was there at 14, before the title. The one who was there during the surrender, in the exact moment of the loss. The The one who is here right now, asking this question. He paused. That one was never taken, cannot be taken, has never in fact been anywhere other than exactly where it is now. Vikram sat with this for a long time. The road had emptied, the light was almost gone. Finally, he said, "If that is true, if who I am was never the kingdom, then who have I been mourning?" "An idea of yourself," the Buddha said simply. "A story you told yourself about what made you real." "And how do I—" Vikram stopped, started again. "How does a man stop mourning a story he has believed his whole life?" The Buddha looked at the sky for a moment. "By asking the question you just asked," he said. "That question, who am I if I am none of these things? That question is not a crisis. That question is the beginning of actually knowing." He stood. "Most kings never get to ask it," he said. "They die surrounded by their clothes, never knowing what was underneath." He looked down at Vikram. "You have been given a very painful and very rare gift. The clothes have been removed, and you are still here." He gestured very gently at the man sitting in the dust. "See," he said, "still here." He did not immediately rise and transform. He sat by the road for another week, but something had shifted in how he sat. He began to look at people who walked past, really look at them, with the particular curiosity of someone who has recently learned that appearances and reality are different things. He began to notice things, small things, the way a child walked, the conversation fragments of passing merchants, the quality of the light at different hours. He began, for the first time in years, to be interested in things outside himself. And one morning he stood up. He walked into Rajgir. He found work, nothing grand, manual labor, basic. Work that a man with his hands and his back could do without a name or a title. He worked. And in the evenings, he sat and he practiced asking the question the Buddha had left him. Not who was I, but who am I? Underneath the clothes, any clothes, the silk of before, the dust of now, who is the one who is always here? It took years to begin to feel the answer, but the question, the real question, had finally been asked. And that, the Buddha had said, was already most of the journey. We all build an identity out of external things, job title, income, status, the neighborhood we live in, the opinions people have of us, the roles we play, provider, achiever, expert, parent. And for a while, these things feel solid. They feel like us. They are not us. They are clothes. And life, at some point, in some form, asks everyone to change clothes. Sometimes it is sudden and violent. A job lost, a relationship ended, a health crisis that reorganizes everything. Sometimes it is slow. The role you built yourself around gradually becomes less relevant. The identity that felt solid at 30 feels ill-fitting at 50. And in those moments, stripped of the title, the status, the way people used to see you, the question becomes unavoidable. Who am I when I am none of these things? The Buddha's answer is this: you are not your credentials, not your bank account, not the number of people who recognize your name, not your highest achievement or your worst failure. You are the awareness that has been present through all of it, the one who was there at your most successful and at your most broken, the one who is here right now, listening to these words. That one cannot be taken, cannot be lost, cannot be left by the side of any road. You are still here. See? Still here. If every external thing about your life changed tomorrow, the job, the title, the reputation, the way people see you, who would you be? Not who would you become, not what would you do. Who, at this moment, are you, underneath all of it? If you can answer that question, really answer it, not with another label, but with something quieter and more real, then nothing that happens on the outside can ever fully take you from yourself again. Sit with that today.